Good evening, everyone. A very happy Independence Day to our eminent guests, all our viewers, and all the members of Asian Literary Society. On behalf of ALS, I extend a very warm welcome to our guests here today. We have Mr. Amarendra Khatua, Professor Nandini Sahu with us today to celebrate the 3-day festival Jashn-e-Azadi organized by ALS to celebrate the 74th Independence Day of our country. Dr. Amarendra Khatua, would you like to say something?
I am with Asian Literary Society for a long time now, and off and on they organize such events and try to involve as many writers, literature enthusiasts possible. And we all are happy, like lots of these things happen all the time.
In fact, because of Corona, this time it is happening online. Otherwise, we would have had a grand function at some venue, I'm sure.
Yes. And Professor Sahu is regular with us.
Yes, yes. Professor Sahu, would you like to share your insights?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Vandana ji, thank you, Manoj ji, and thank you, Amarendra sir, for having given me this opportunity to interact with all of you on the program by Asian Literary Society. Jashn-e-Azadi, it sounds really good. And last 3 days, I have been trying to follow your programs, and you all are doing a wonderful job. Representations from all disciplines and all parts of the society you have been inviting, and a lot of meaningful discussion has been going on. So I think very engaging and meaningful programs you all are organizing. Congratulations and thank you. And I wish happy Independence Day to all of you, to the viewers.
Thank you, ma'am. Indeed, we have been running the programs for the last 3 days. We've had a number of guests here. I would like to introduce our guests today. So, Professor Nandini Sahu. Professor Nandini Sahu is a major voice in contemporary Indian English literature. She's a doctorate in English literature and has been widely published in India, US, UK, Africa, and Pakistan as well. Apart from numerous other literary awards, she's a triple gold medalist in English literature and has also been the recipient of gold medal from Honorable Vice President of India for her contribution to English studies in 2019. She's the author of author and editor of 14 books. Presently, she's the director of Foreign Languages, School of Foreign Languages at IGNOU, New Delhi. We welcome you, ma'am, here. We also have with us Dr. Amarendra Khatua, who is former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Dr. Khatua is an accomplished poet and writer. He is a 1981 batch Indian Foreign Services officer. In his diplomatic career, he has held various positions at MEA. He has also served in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Planning Commission. He has held the positions as Director General, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, as well as Dean for Foreign Services Institute. He has 40-odd collections in English, Hindi, and Oriya, and many of which have been translated in all major Indian and international languages. Wow, there's a lot to learn from you, sir and ma'am. Welcome, sir. It's an honor to have you here with us for the discussion today. So the theme of our discussion today is very interesting. Since we are celebrating freedom and our journey of freedom from 1947 till 2020, and we are a literary society, so I thought the best thing would be to combine both. So we've chosen the theme of transformation in the role of literature from pre-independence India to the post-independent India. So I would like to raise a first question to you, Amarendra sir. So the questions are going to be common, and I would like your opinion. I would like the opinion of both the guests we have today on the question set. The first question is, literature has always played a very important role, in all the genre, in all the fields, especially in the independence. So now the role of pre-independent literature in our freedom struggle especially cannot be overlooked. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose once said, "One individual may die, but his idea will, after his death, incarnate itself in 1,000 lives." And what a beautiful way to, praise the work of any person who presents any idea. and we writers or survive on ideas itself. Literature has played an immense role in shaping the history. Many intellectuals of that time in the pre-independent era also used fiction as well as poetry for a patriotic purpose, to create a national movement by writing revolutionary articles or by singing songs or by showing their dissent to British policies, or to unite the people of the country at that time. Now, sir and ma'am, here's the question for you. I would like you to, show your insights on what role do you think modern day literature is playing in our society? Can it be deemed as effective as it was at the time of independence? Is our writing so instrumental in bringing about the changes which are required in the society? Amrendra sir, would you like to go with a thought first?
Okay, we'll continue. We keep on changing the views and all. So when you are talking about literature shaping history, I think we are overriding one of the role with the other. History shapes literature. Yes, literature influences part of the history in a different kind of way. Literature is not action. Literature is influence. Say, right. For example, if I'm conveying a message through literature, yes. Say, for example, when we are talking about freedom movement of India, talk about literature of Bankim Chandra in West Bengal, talk about literature of Bal Gangadhar Tilak in Maharashtra.
Right.
There are lots of writers who have influenced the currents, the philosophy, and the spirit of the mass movement. But right. If exactly we say that literature has contributed in shaping completely the movement, I think it is a very limited view. Then, today when we are talking about literature, obviously, once you have independence, or once you gain independence, a country is independent, people are independent, then the role of literature can change. It can become creative. Say, what we talk about art for art's sake. There is nothing wrong. But yes, a society gets influenced by literature to some extent via its impressive role as a message giver. Let me stop here, then we'll continue with Professor Sahu. Yeah, please.
Professor Sahu, Dr. Amrendra Katua says that, literature drives action. It isn't the action, but it drives the action is what the takeaway is. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I will take the hint from Dr. Amrendra Katua only. He has given me a very good point. When he talked about art for art's sake, as a teacher of literature, I have been teaching literature since past 20 years or more, and also I'm a practicing creative writer. I have been writing poetry and fiction, and also a lot of work I have been doing on folklore studies. So whatever work I do or whatever classes I take, and I engage my students in discussions and all that, I always differentiate in the classroom between art for art's sake and art for life's sake. Like Amrendra sir rightly pointed out, that art for art's sake is beautiful. Art and aesthetics, they are closely connected to each other. There should be beauty in art, but at the same time, it should have some purpose for life.
Right.
Art should have some message for life. So in some of my classes, I discuss something called witness literature. Witness, in the court of law, a witness plays a very important role, a very major role. He can actually change the case. Similarly, right. In the process of social change, when we want to change the society for better, the writer plays the role of the witness. So this is what is called witness literature in contemporary literary theory scenario. This is one of the upcoming areas of research and pedagogy today, that we ask our students to talk about witness literature. How far any text they are interpreting for their research or their analysis, how far that has played the role of a witness. And the idea has been taken from Nadine Gordimer's speech for the Nobel Prize, when she said that I want to write witness literature. I want to contribute literature as witness. So this is what Amrendra sir and I think both of us agree to the point that art for art's sake is definitely there. Art is beautiful. Art and aesthetics are connected, but literature should play the role of a witness for social change. Art is basically for life's sake. That's what I feel.
Yeah, so I mean, that's very interesting. I never knew the concept of witness literature, and it's very interesting to know that, teachers are promoting that and, asking students to, write about that or think at least on those lines. Witness literature is a very new concept, I feel, and the idea behind it is very interesting. Basically we're trying to create a movement, with writing, and if at all we have, if we have to push through our thoughts in a manner that it creates a movement, or masses are involved.
Awareness.
Yes, sir.
What I was saying, more than the movement, awareness. Say, for example,
awareness. Yes, awareness.
Today, when you are talking about modern day literature, once the purpose has been identified, that you are saying a revolution, can literature bring revolution? Freedom movement, can literature support freedom movement? Fight against apartheid, Nelson Mandela, can literature help? These are instances. But also, you have to see, when we are talking about art for art's sake, literature also becomes individualistic. They are like the beauty for art's sake, like beautiful music. Everybody likes it, but once the music is over, we are not talking about the spirit of that literature influencing society or bringing social change. Therefore, both the things must exist side by side.
So where do you think it is needed to, bring that thought or, that capability in the writers that they are able to do it? Like you said that once the, music is forgotten, or once a person reads a literary piece, the key takeaways are forgotten after some time. So what do you think, what changes does the writing need in order for it to become, really impressions in the mind of the reader, to leave an impression in the mind of the reader?
But literature is a continuous flow. Say, today, like when you are talking about Tagore, only the institutional parameters comes to my mind. Now I'll read Professor Nandini Sahu's writing. Things keep on evolving, changing. And literature is the spirit which reaches us through this flow only. It is not something moribund. So, for example, talk about India. It's such a unity in diversity. You have so many languages. How many regional languages you have? And many regional languages produce terrific literature. But we do not know about those literature because translation is not there. When we are talking about translation can be both art for art's sake and art for life's sake. It's Dalit literature. Translate and reach it to the people. I get the meaning.
You're right, actually. We have never been able to read the works of other authors or writers who are writing maybe impeccable pieces, in their own mother language, in their own regional languages. That's correct. Anything you would want to add on to that, Dr. Sahu?
Yeah, so I would connect this to the contemporary scenario in the country. The current scenario in the country is leading to unrest, to chaos, and communal discontent is there. Dysfunctional environment, anxiety in the public is very much there. So everyone is looking for some revolutionary change in the system. Many people are talking about freedom. So what kind of freedom we really want today? Freedom comes with responsibility. Freedom comes with some sort of accountability. So if students and the researchers and the readers, they want freedom today, then also they have to think about the accountability, the responsibility that comes with the freedom, and the duties that come with freedom. This issue is essential for us today, and for the future generations also, to address that. We need to find out why the average Indian who was so naive till yesterday is suddenly so full of protest today, so full of remorse today. The general avoidance, and the apathy in the society today is it's calling for serious deliberations, serious discussions. And India is a fast progressing nation. It's undergoing massive changes in the social, economic, and the political scenario. We witness a paradigm shift today. Everywhere, in research, in pedagogy, in literature, everywhere. It's stimulating our senses. So we have to ask a few questions to ourselves. that literary studies affect the society. So what kind of literature we are going to produce? Like in the beginning itself, I talked about witness literature. So I must say that the role of literature is remarkable. It can stimulate our thought process. It can actually change the minds of people. So the kind of literature we produce should be responsible literature. Poetry
Right.
should be responsible. It should
Freedom
not
of
only be
expression,
but also,
basically.
yeah, it should be responsible. So too many voices are all over there today. The politicians, the journalists, historians, celebrities, teachers, students, everyone is loud and clear. Everyone
True.
is trying to make a point.
Right.
There is so much chaos everywhere. Everyone wants to make a point. So in so much of unrest, so much of speaking, so much of loud and clear speaking, of course this is good. It's good to point out, it's good to speak out. But so is the writer's voice lost in the cacophony? Is the voice of literature euphonic? So euphony and cacophony are two things the writers must understand the difference between the two. Shouting is cacophony, and euphony is making a point for yourself through beautiful language, through beautiful thought process. So this is what I call witness literature, that the euphonic poetry, beautiful poetry, and also raising questions for social change. So that kind of poetry or literature should be written. Otherwise, the voice of the writer should be definitely lost. If the voice is important, if the voice is meek and mild, then the voice should be definitely lost. So sometimes the writers desire to please everyone, to be politically correct, yearning for prizes and awards, which is subject to sometimes, political biases also. That kind of thing, then it creates ineffective literature, not witness literature, not responsible literature. So today, the writer has to understand that the personal is political. Whatever is my personal feeling is actually the political issue of the society. Because literature has a universal approach. If I am not able to write universal literature, then better I do not write at all. So responsible literature, universal literature, and a euphonic literature is the thought of the day, which every writer must ponder over.
Very well put, ma'am. Very well put. Thank you for your insights. I would now move on, just extending the thought of, which you said about the freedom which all the writers have, and it should be a responsible writing. I would like to say a few words of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar here. He said, so long as you do not achieve social liberty, whatever freedom is provided by the law is of no avail to you. So I guess we do have a point that we do have a freedom, but we also need to be responsible, in presenting our views. Now, freedom is actually the most debatable term. I mean, in today's world, since like you said, that everyone has a voice, everyone has an opinion, there are actors, there are politicians, there are singers, there are celebrities, there are doctors, and so many people who are making their point. Now, if I gather all these people at once and ask them what freedom is, everyone will come up with so many different views. Now, what my point here is that, do you think that today writers are able to express their views in a azad manner, I would say, with total freedom, as if I have to say something, I'm not afraid of writing it out? Do I care about the assent? Am I able to present my assent and dissent in a manner in which I want to, or am I just, influenced by how many likes am I going to get on a social media if I write it out? Whether this particular piece of writing is going to get me an award or a certification from some organization or some society or some literary panel, whether this piece will be able to justify the requirements of the online magazine that I'm applying to. So my point is that most of the times we are presenting our views, but are we really presenting our views in a really free manner, as in what I really want to express, or is it just to please the public or the writer, or the publisher? What is your view, Amrendra sir, on that?
See, you said 3-4 things together. One,
yes, I did. Sorry.
Anybody, whether the actor, whether the doctor, whether the artist, everybody is talking. They are talking, if it is talked in a coherent manner, creative manner, with spontaneity, that is literature. But what Professor Shah said, when you are a writer, you have to understand what your responsibility is. Responsibility to the craft, to the society, and to yourself. These three things each writer has. I'm writing, obviously. Sometimes I write, if I get an award, I'm very happy. Or many people read me, I'm very happy. Two, if my writing conveys some meaning to a social cause, and that cause brings change, understanding, or revolutionary process of interaction, even that is excellent. Then the third thing is whether posterity will remember me or not. That is not for the writer and the time. That is the space will decide that. And the fourth thing what you said is the cyber, the mass media, the easy way to reach out to people. That you cannot do. That has really impacted literature. Professor Shawari talked about that also. Yes, that's true. So in this, the question is: are we expressing freely?
Yes.
Up to a point, yes. But that point is very difficult to decide. Are we limited? Yes, we are limited. Limited for self-publicity, or the cause limits us, or we are our limitations.
Professor Sahu, your view on that? I kind of agree with sir.
Yeah, of course, I do agree with sir, with Dr. Khatua. So I will take off where I had left actually. I told that the personal is political. You know, modern day writers are contributing to a positive social change by practicing the idea that the personal is political. Whatever is Nandini's view, is Nandini's feeling in her creative writing should actually be applicable for whole lot of people in the society. People can connect to my writing. And of course, by writing responsible literature as a writer, teacher, critic, and folklorist, I keep telling my readers that any kind of freedom comes with responsibility and accountability, that I said already. So, to the first step to overcome this syndrome of not getting connected to the society is, I mean, with Azadi, freedom is self-doubt. The writer has to be critical about himself or herself, about his or her pen, and pose the question. As a writer, I should be in a position to pose the question to myself: does my writing make an impact on anyone at all? Like Amarendra sir just said, that after a few years, will people remember me as Dr. Amarendra Khatua, or they will remember my writing as something which has actually enriched the society? So I think the second one is more important for any writer. Going with T.S. Eliot, he, in the theory of depersonalization in the essay tradition and individual talent, as he has said, that the writer has to detach himself from the subject. The mind of the writer should play the role of a catalyst. The writer's mind should not undergo any change while bringing the social change. Similarly, if I'm a writer, social issues, debates, problems, and happinesses, everything should go into my mind, and then my mind should play the role of the change, the social change, and then it should come out as objective literature. So during a time when the voice of the mob is overpowering everything else, will my voice be heard? During an age when society is damaged by the divisions of caste, religion, class, so many divisions are there in the society today, can my pen contest this? Can my pen challenge this and be the fabric to connect the disjointed threads? If yes, I must write. If not, then it's better for me to be the onlooker. Literature is the inward testimony of a writer. It's witness literature, as I already told you, that it addresses the depths and the implications of a society.
Right.
It's not vulnerable literature. It doesn't have any passion in itself. Rather, it is kind literature. This kind of literature is, empathetic literature. If I look at a person and I can feel his or her pain, only then I'm in a position to write something about himself or him or her. Otherwise, I would be a word juggler. I would be playing with only the words. So, Britannica defines literature as Encyclopedia Britannica, how it defines literature: the imaginative works of poetry and prose distinguished by the intentions of their authors and the perceived aesthetic excellence of their execution. And Webster Dictionary, how it defines literature: writings have excellence of form and expression of ideas of universal interest. And how Kafka, he says about literature is a book. Some writing, it should be an axe to break the frozen sea within us. How beautiful it is. I have a frozen sea within me. Something is frozen within me. If I am able to write, then the sea will be broken. It will come out as liquid as water. So my kindness, my empathy, my love, everything should come out in the form of creative writing if I am a capable writer. So here I'm reminded about Picasso. He might not be the best gentleman in the town, but he managed to write the literature of purpose. Some responsible literature he wrote. Literature without purpose is like schooling without learning. You go to school, but you learn nothing. You just get a degree. It's like that. So how are we to conjure up literature like Derrida believes? I would like to believe with Derrida. Is it not a form of representation? Literature is the representation of the society. How shall we envision the poet's place in our lives as unacknowledged legislators of the world if literature materializes in a cultural location which is something that is not witness to life? So, definitions of the word witness in Oxford Dictionary, as I was looking at it today morning, is attestation of a fact, of an event, a statement. It's a testimony. It's an evidence. One who is or was present and is able to testify from personal observation. So if I can take from my personal observation and then I can give it a shape as if it is your observation, as if it's your experience, only then I can give witness to my writing. So as I already told you that Nadine Gordimer in 2001 in the Nobel Prize speech, she coined the term witness literature, and she said that my literature should be the representative of the society. So it's a creative memory of a society, of a group of people. So it should be decisive literature. So probably each writer should take that kind of responsibility within himself or herself so that we produce meaningful and responsible literature and poetry.
Well, I have a question here. You have been referring to, witness literature and, account of, what I have witnessed, or, it's kind of, building the scenario, which I have noticed. But somewhere there has to be a difference between journalism and, literature. When we are, presenting what I have, let's say I have witnessed an event and I'm trying to present it in the form of an article, or if I'm trying to present it in the form of a poem, they're two different things. If I'm just writing, to let the people know what happened, basically, per se, fact by fact, that's called journalism, right? But if I'm trying to present it in a manner that actually, like you said, use the word empathy. So a writer has to per se be empathetic first if he has to produce good, impactful writing. So if I am empathetic and, if I use that, feelings of mine, emotions of mine, and build a scenario around the facts which are presented by journalism, then only an impactful writing will come, right?
Yeah, right. So when you said that, I would like to quote W.B. Yeats a couple of lines. He wrote somewhere that those that I fight, I repeat, those that I fight, I do not hate. Those that I guard, I do not love. So it's not necessary that you are writing against some idea, against somebody. That doesn't mean that you actually hate that person or that concept. Right. Or if you're writing in favor of somebody, that doesn't mean that you actually love that person. So my answer to your question would be, a writer doesn't have the luxury of being judgmental and subjective. As a writer, I cannot be judgmental. I cannot be subjective. I don't have the luxury of being passionate about you or anyone for that matter. So the critics may question, like you just questioned me, anyone may question, is there a loss of creative autonomy in this kind of responsible literature? Is art, is beauty, is aesthetic lost in the process if you are writing too much of responsible literature? And it can be didactic literature, isn't it? It can be didactic literature. My answer to that would be, a writer should treat his or her writing as oxygen in water. When you are drinking a glass of water, like I am drinking this glass of water, I won't say that I'm drinking oxygen, but oxygen is very much present in it. Similarly, in any kind of writing, beautiful poetry with aesthetics, didacticism, or let us say responsibility should be present, like oxygen is present in my glass of water. So, yeah. Yes, please.
So, yes, ma'am, I would like to interrupt you here because we are running a little bit behind time. So we will just move on to the next question. The next question is related to the writing journey. So our freedom was a long battle. It spread over many years. Every experience, I believe, in our life is a long journey. So do you think in the life of a writer, is there ever a point, I mean, both of you are experienced writers, you've been writing for years. Was there ever a point when you felt that, now I have achieved the zenith, this is it. I mean, I have learned everything I could about writing and, there's nothing much to learn now. Does learning as a writer ever stop?
If learning as human being does not stop, learning as a writer will not stop at all. Then second is
very true.
The statement that writer's journey is an endless journey. As Professor Rao said, say for example, you have to have a purpose. For that purpose, you are working, you are producing, you are writing, you are creating aesthetics, beautiful aesthetics and all, beautiful music, beautiful poetry, you are creating all this. But evolution of human society also takes place side by side. Say, when we are talking about like, we talk about like different groups of literary spirits. Say, from Shakespeare, say, it's many names he has quoted. Say, today, if you ask people, tell me like 20 names globally known who are influencing our literature. In our mind when it comes, we can talk about good books, but purposeful books, books which can influence, books which can bring social change, there will be very few. Therefore, I do not think saying that a writer's journey has an end. Individual writers may be, like physically he is not possible, it is impossible for him to produce things, mentally he's not getting inspired. But writer's journey is endless. It is like
कहते हैं ना हर रास्ते की कोई एक मंजिल होती है, तो as a writer हमारी मंजिल कहाँ पे मिलती है हमें?
No, if you are talking about award, like if you are talking award, somebody gets Gyanfit, that means his writing has ended. Like that kind of thing we are talking about. I do not think.
No, obviously, I mean that's the beauty of writing. That you can start from your birth, and you can start from the point when you start writing, when you start to learn writing, and you can continue till your last breath. That is one occupation, I would say, one profession where you do not retire. So retirement age nahi hai, matlab.
The relevance of beauty of living does not end. Therefore, writer's work does not end. But yes, individual writers, they stop sometimes for other things.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to share your views on this? Did you ever feel that that बहुत लिख लिया, बहुत सीख लिया writing के बारे में?
No, I so agree with Dr. Ramadendra Khatwa when he said that a writer's journey is never ending. When we write, we actually evolve as human beings. The food for thought, it comes from Albert Camus. I read somewhere Camus writing that the moment I am no more than a writer, I cease to be a writer. The moment I am just a writer, then actually I am not a writer anymore. So, my journey is never ending. When I started writing, I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I was just little girl, and then in the village, I come from a rural village in Odisha. I saw that the farmers were working in the fields. There was heavy rain, and all of us were, sleeping luxuriously. And then the farmers were working in the fields. I felt so connected to them. I felt empathetic for them. I ran to play with them, to give them company. Then back home, of course, I was bitten by my mother that you were playing in the rain. And then I ended up writing a poem. So at that point of time, I just wrote about the beauty of rain and how the farmers are working and all. And today, when I look back at this vintage point, at this age, when I look back, I think that the farmers, they have contributed so much towards to our lives. They provide us food, they provide us comfort. So, the process of creative writing is the process of actually evolving. Every book makes a writer grow. Every poem leaves room for growth for the author as a human being. If we do not grow with each poem, then probably there is no use of our writing. A writer's journey is never ending.
Inspiration is everywhere, basically. We just need to see what inspires us, per se.
Yeah.
I would like to close this from a very beautiful lines from Leonardo da Vinci. He said, learning is the only thing the mind never exhausts, never fears, and never regrets. I think that's what we all agree to. Sir and ma'am, the question session is over. Now, since we have two eminent poets over here and writers over here, and on the occasion of this auspicious day of our independence, I would like you to recite one of the poem of yours. Should we start with Amarendra sir first?
Yeah, sure.
Professor Shaw.
No, the senior poet first. So okay. About Amarendra sir, we all grew up reading his poetry, and when we were small children and we were reading his poems, we really wanted to see the man who is writing such powerful poems. And today he is in front of me, and I'm sharing this with him.
Yeah, it must be a great feeling.
It's a great feeling.
I just attended a Dalit Poets Conference in Maharashtra, and this poem was read there. It is edited now. The poem's name is My Country, small one. Every morning, when the sun rises like a baked sunflower over a thatched roof, tilted in any nameless countryside, do you see the movements that idiot inside empty stomachs with birds of colored hopes? A naked chest of a child burning with dreams for bread and words. A woman praying for her unseen, endangered future and chastity. Many leaders of half-baked words sprouting fluid sentences and well-meaning betrayals. Where are our presents? The doubting civilization of middle-class virtues and achievements, creating a monument of hope and happenings. It is our doing. The Mahabharata of unmade destiny will surely curse us with the beauty of living, surrounded by dirt of distress. We tell the truth with closed eyes and inside the prison of sacrificeless individualism. The map has to bleed in front of our impotence. We are the sons and forefathers of our tomorrow, poor country. We are entrenched duly in our takings from a bloodied soil. Thank you.
Very nice poem, sir. Very nice. That's actually the truth of our country. Very nice. Nandini, ma'am, over to you.
Yeah,
small piece from you.
Thank you, Vandana ji. Thank you, sir. Such a powerful poem. The title of my poem is Freedom. Since today is the Independence Day, so I selected this poem, Freedom, from my 4th poetry collection. So the title is Freedom. Sometimes I ponder that my country's limbs are crushed down somewhere in the busy traffic of a metro, while freedom hides with shame in its 74th year under the bed of the battered baby, deserted by parents unknown in the trauma center of AIIMS, New Delhi, India. Average 3 infants deserted daily in the capital, reports the daily newspaper. My fingers nimble by cold wind, bruises everywhere in the hurt air. Here, molested children and abandoned old parents prize their freedom in wakeful dreams and silently smile. I scream inward to refurbish the old world. The sun is a falling rock. Sometimes I wonder why my country's limbs are crushed down somewhere in the false assurances of power and failure, and in the fate of the girl gang raped in bus by many men and a minor, her silent death in a hospital stir the depths of our race. I look at freedom in the eye. Freedom, the dry drone of just ritual. In my ignorance, I wish to end this season. The chaotic drum beats freeze around me, turning into twisted pillars. Each hour, each second pass through my waiting veins like the shadow of a triumphal arch. I try to understand the only freedom, the freedom of the womb and the freedom of the ashes. Freedom hides somewhere in the contours of my country's body, alien.
Wow, such a impeccable poem, really thought-provoking. Thank you, ma'am. I would like to end the session here with a few lines that I had written in the morning. आजादी आजादी जश्न आजादी दिमाग में चल रहा था तो आजादी पे कुछ ख्याल था. आजादी एक जज्बा है, आजादी एक जज्बा है, आजादी एक ख्याल है, आजादी एक मुहिम है, आजादी एक सभ्यता है. आजाद तुम भी हो, आजाद हम भी हैं, आजाद तुम भी हो, आजाद हम भी हैं. फिर क्यों कैद हैं हम एक दूसरे के जहन में, फिर क्यों नहीं उड़ते हम आजाद गगन में. Thank you so much, Amarendra ma'am. Thank you so much, Nandini ma'am. Thank you so much, Amarendra sir. Thank you so much, Nandini ma'am. Apologies for the, and thank you so much, Manoj Krishnan, for all your efforts for organizing this seamless event. It was a pleasure having you both here, and we'll meet you soon. When the Corona scare is gone, in a live environment and a more decent atmosphere. And thank you so much, sir. We'd like to end the session here. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vandana ji. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.